The klaxon bleeds through the steel. It's not a sound, not really. More like a physical assault, a hammer blow aimed directly at the sternum. Each pulse vibrates through the deck plating, up through the soles of my boots, and lodges, a cold sliver, in my gut. Red light floods the control room, painting everything in shades of panic and urgency. No windows, no escape. Just the relentless, claustrophobic reality of being entombed in a steel coffin, miles beneath the unforgiving skin of the ocean. Sweat beads on my forehead, mirroring the condensation that perpetually clings to the pipes snaking across the ceiling. My breath catches in my throat, a strangled gasp lost in the cacophony of alarms and shouted orders. The air, already thick with the metallic tang of recycled oxygen, feels heavy, almost viscous. It presses in, a palpable weight, reminding me with every shallow inhale of the crushing pressure waiting outside. Here, in the belly of the beast, time warps. Seconds stretch into agonizing eternities. The world shrinks to the confines of this cramped, humming space. A space where every action, every decision, could mean the difference between life and a watery grave. My hand instinctively goes to the worn patch on my uniform sleeve, the embroidered dolphin a silent talisman against the encroaching dread. It's a small thing, a piece of fabric, but it represents something bigger: camaraderie, sacrifice, the unwavering faith in the men beside me. Men who, despite the fear etched on their faces, move with a practiced efficiency, each a cog in the intricate, unforgiving machine that is a nuclear submarine. They are my brothers, bound together by a shared oath and the terrifying beauty of this underwater dance with death. The depth gauge needle creeps steadily downwards. We are diving. Deeper, further, into the crushing black abyss. The world outside ceases to exist, replaced by the sonar's ghostly whispers and the frantic calculations of the fire control officer. The only reality is the here and now, the razor's edge between survival and oblivion. This is not a drill. Not anymore. I remember the day I received my acceptance letter to the Naval Academy. The crisp, official paper felt heavy in my trembling hands, laden with the weight of expectation and the promise of a future I could barely imagine. My grandfather, a grizzled old sailor with eyes that held the vastness of the ocean, had simply nodded, a knowing smile playing on his lips. The sea, he'd rasped, his voice roughened by years of salt spray and shouted commands. She demands respect. And she rewards those who are worthy. I hadn't understood then, not really. I saw only the adventure, the challenge, the chance to prove myself. He'd taken me to the docks that afternoon, the smell of brine and diesel fuel thick in the air. We stood in silence for a long time, watching the fishing boats bobbing gently in the harbor. He pointed to a weathered trawler, its hull scarred and patched, and told me stories of storms weathered, of close calls and miraculous saves. He spoke of the men who manned those vessels, their quiet courage and unwavering dedication to their craft. He taught me the language of the sea, the mournful cry of the gulls, the rhythmic slap of waves against the hull, the subtle shifts in the wind that could signal a change in fortune. That night, he showed me his own submariner's badge, tarnished with age and worn smooth from years of being clutched in his hand during moments of peril. This, he said, his voice thick with emotion, is more than just a piece of metal. It's a symbol of brotherhood, of sacrifice, of the unwavering commitment to protect those who cannot protect themselves. He pinned it to my chest, the cold steel a stark contrast to the warmth of his hand. Wear it with pride, son. And never forget the men who came before you. His words echo in my ears now, a constant reminder of the legacy I carry. The legacy of men who faced down unimaginable dangers, who braved the crushing depths and the silent terrors of the unknown. Men who understood that the true measure of a sailor is not his skill or his strength, but his unwavering loyalty to his crew and his unwavering commitment to his duty. I gripped the worn patch on my sleeve tighter, drawing strength from the memory of his unwavering gaze and the weight of his expectations. He wouldn't have wanted me to be afraid. Fear is a luxury we cannot afford down here. It breeds indecision, hesitation, and ultimately, death. He would have wanted me to be strong, to be resolute, to be the leader these men need me to be. To be the man he knew I could be. The man he always believed I was. The sonar ping intensified, a relentless hammer against the hull. Each pulse vibrated through my teeth, a physical manifestation of the unseen enemy lurking in the black depths. We were running silent, but silence felt like a fragile shield against the hunter's ear. Sweat plastered my hair to my forehead, the air thick with the metallic tang of fear and recycled air. Outside, the ocean pressed in, a crushing weight that amplified the claustrophobia. Con sonar. Contact bearing 270, closing. Class unknown, but sounds big. Crackled over the intercom, the voice tight with barely suppressed anxiety. Captain Reynolds, a man whose face was usually etched with a stoic calm, looked grim. All ahead flank. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Weapons stand by. The submarine lurched as the engines roared to life, the sudden acceleration throwing me against the console. Alarms blared, a cacophony of red lights flashing in the confined space. I clung to my station, knuckles white, trying to focus on the readings flickering across my screen. The hunt was on, and we were the prey. The next few minutes were a blur of frantic activity. Reynolds barked orders, the helmsman wrestled with the controls, and the weapons officer, a young man named Miller, chanted targeting data like a mantra. The sonar pings grew louder, closer, the unseen enemy breathing down our necks. We twisted and turned, diving deep then rising sharply, trying to throw off their pursuit. But they were relentless. Then it happened. A deafening explosion ripped through the submarine, throwing me off my feet. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. Screams filled the air, mingled with the hiss of escaping steam and the groaning of metal. My ears rang, my head swam, and I tasted blood in my mouth. Damage report! Reynolds roared, his voice barely audible above the chaos. Reports trickled in, each one a hammer blow. Hull breach in Section 4. Fire in the engine room. Casualties mounting. We were crippled, wounded, but not yet dead. Flood control, seal off Section 4. Miller, can you still target? Aye, Captain. But they're right on top of us. Reynolds made a decision, his voice calm amidst the storm. Prepare to fire. This is it. Do or die. The torpedoes launched with a thunderous roar, shaking the submarine to its core. We waited, holding our breath, listening for the telltale sound of an explosion. Then silence. A long, agonizing silence. Finally, a faint crackle over the intercom. Sonar, contact lost. Bearing 270. Target destroyed. A collective sigh of relief swept through the submarine. We had survived. But at what cost? I never saw sunlight again after that day. Not in the way that mattered. The fluorescent lights of my apartment buzz, a sterile hum that does little to fill the silence. It's been years since the incident, years of therapy, medication, and forced attempts at normalcy. But normalcy remains a distant shore, forever out of reach. My apartment is a meticulously organized sanctuary, every object in its place, a desperate attempt to impose order on the chaos that still rages within. I have a routine, a rigid schedule that dictates every aspect of my life. It's my lifeline, the only thing that keeps me from being swallowed whole. Sleep is a battlefield. Nightmares claw their way from the depths of my subconscious, replaying the explosion, the darkness, the screams. I wake up gasping for air, my heart pounding, the phantom taste of blood in my mouth. Sometimes I can still feel the cold, crushing pressure of the ocean on my chest. I've tried everything to escape them, meditation, white noise, sleep aids, but nothing works. The ghosts of the submarine are relentless, forever tethered to my soul. I avoid crowds, confined spaces, anything that triggers the memories. The subway is a torture chamber, the supermarket a minefield. Even the sound of running water can send me spiraling. My world has shrunk, contracted to the four walls of my apartment. I've become a recluse, a ghost in my own life. My relationships have suffered. How can I explain to someone the darkness that lurks beneath the surface? How can I ask them to love a broken man? I tried once, with a woman named Sarah. She was kind, patient, and understanding. But eventually, the weight of my trauma became too much for her to bear. She left, leaving me with the familiar ache of loneliness. Sometimes, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror and barely recognize the man staring back. The young, eager officer who joined the Navy is gone, replaced by a haunted shell. The light in my eyes has been extinguished, replaced by a perpetual shadow. They tell me I'm a survivor. They tell me I'm strong. But I don't feel strong. I feel like a shattered vase, glued back together but forever scarred. I carry the weight of the ocean inside me, a constant reminder of the day I almost died. And in a way, I did. The man I was died in that submarine. And the man who emerged is just trying to find a way to live with the wreckage. The klaxon fell silent. An unnerving quiet replaced the cacophony, thick and heavy as the pressure still clinging to the hull. Men lay sprawled, exhausted, slick with sweat, their faces masks of grim relief. The air, once thick with adrenaline, now tasted metallic, stale. Lieutenant Harding pushed himself up, his ears still ringing, and moved through the cramped torpedo room. He stepped over sleeping sailors, their faces pale in the dim red light. The faces of boys. He paused beside Miller, his face smudged with grease and something darker. Miller looked up, his eyes vacant, and Harding saw something had broken in him down there. "You okay, son?" Harding asked, his voice rough. Miller blinked, a slow, painful movement. "Just tired, sir." Harding nodded, understanding more than Miller realized. He continued his rounds, checking on his crew, offering a word of encouragement, a pat on the shoulder. He reached the control room. Commander Reynolds stood rigidly, his gaze fixed on the depth gauge. The needle trembled just below the crushed depth. "Report," Reynolds said, his voice tight. "All compartments report secure, sir. Minimal casualties. Damage control teams are assessing the extent of the hull stress." Reynolds didn't respond, his jaw clenched. The weight of command, the weight of responsibility for every soul on board, pressed down on him like the tons of water above. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the faces of his officers. "We almost didn't make it," he said, his voice a low rasp. "Too close. Much too close." A wave of nausea washed over Harding as the realization fully hit him. They had danced on the edge of oblivion, and the abyss had stared back. He thought of Sarah, her smile, the way she brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. The image was so vivid, so fragile. He had almost lost everything. He found himself back in his bunk, the small space feeling smaller than ever. He tried to sleep, but the images flashed behind his eyelids. The buckling hull, the screaming metal, the faces of his crew. He got up and walked back to the control room. Reynolds was still there, staring at the depth gauge. "Sir?" Harding said quietly. "Can't sleep." Reynolds didn't turn. "Me either." He paused. "You know, Harding, down there, it strips you bare. You see what you're really made of. What everyone is made of." Harding nodded, understanding. He had seen courage, fear, and everything in between. He had seen the best and worst of humanity, all compressed into that steel tube. "What did you see, sir?" Reynolds finally turned, his eyes filled with a profound weariness. "I saw the weight of command. The knowledge that my decisions could mean life or death for every man on this boat. And I saw my own limitations." He looked away, his gaze lost in the depths of the control room. "I saw how easily it could all be taken away." Harding stood beside him in silence, the two men united by the shared experience, the shared burden. He thought of his father, the stories he had told of his own time in submarines, the unspoken traumas that lingered beneath the surface. He finally understood. It wasn't just about duty or honor or country. It was about the men beside you, the fragile bonds of camaraderie forged in the face of death. It was about the knowledge that you were all in it together, relying on each other to survive. After a long silence, Reynolds spoke again, his voice softer, almost a whisper. "We'll surface at dawn. Let them see the sun." As the first rays of light pierced the inky blackness of the ocean, the submarine began its slow ascent. Harding stood on the bridge, the cold spray stinging his face. He watched as the surface drew closer, the water shimmering with the promise of life. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the fresh, clean air. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin. When he opened his eyes, he saw the sky, vast and blue and limitless. He saw the ocean, stretching to the horizon, a world of possibilities. And he knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within his soul, that he would never look at the world the same way again. He had been to the depths, and he had returned. He had faced death, and he had survived. And in that survival, he had found a new appreciation for life, a new understanding of the human spirit, a new resolve to live each day to the fullest. The submarine broke the surface, a black leviathan emerging from the depths. The men on deck cheered, their voices echoing across the water. They had faced the darkness, and they had found the light. They were home. And they were alive. The sun climbed higher in the sky, bathing the submarine in its golden glow, a beacon of hope in the vast expanse of the sea. The ordeal was over. But the memories, the lessons, the scars, they would remain, etched forever in their hearts and minds. They were submariners. And they had stared into the abyss, and lived to tell the tale.